Hi there! If you ever wonder what these things are, I only play games that allow me to use a Game Boy as a controller, so I have no clue what to use any of these for.
The video game controller, arguably the most important piece of hardware for any gamer and the mortal enemy of the Xbox's Kinect, truly a rivalry for the ages. When people say that games aren't the same unless you're playing it on the same hardware, chances are the hardware they're talking about is the controller it was designed for. Now, for multi-platform games, this isn't as big of a deal. They were already designed with multiple controllers in mind, so it's not much of a big deal to play these on any controller. Maybe not this one. And it's not much of a stretch to imagine these with a controller that isn't one of the most recent controllers. In short, you can just play these how you like. But then we get to the weirder ones, usually Nintendo, which likes to make controllers that look like this, or damn it, get out of here! And a lot of the time I can't imagine playing some of the games made for these controllers with these. Take, for example, Wii Sports and Kinect Sports. Kinect just doesn't feel as natural, what with not actually holding something in your hand and all. The Wii Remote just being there gives you some weight to your actions, and sometimes that's just all you need. And that's what it usually comes down to, user interfaces or game feel. Now you can usually learn to deal with it. I do that whenever I play PC games using a Switch Pro controller. Press A! Yeah, okay, sure. But sometimes it's just impossible to deal with. I have no idea how I ever played the Mega Man Zero games on a GameCube controller. This just does not work! Which brings me to handheld games. I have no idea how some people can play these with an analog stick. Sure, some handheld consoles had sticks, like the Nut you can play with, and the Nut 2, those come to mind.
PSP. It's like a nut you can play with outside.
But most of these, digital input only. Pressing left means left, not left and slightly down, slightly left. No, left means left. This was incredibly noticeable in Crystal Chronicles, a game designed to be played with a GBA, so when playing with a GameCube controller, for example, the stick still emulates digital input, which makes precise movements very difficult. Link's Awakening on the Switch also locks you into digital directions. Why? The game was redesigned for the Switch, I don't get why this is here. I just want to use my stick to move and I can't even use the D-pad. Again, you can get used to it. It just doesn't really work well in my opinion. I had this problem back in the day with some Mega Man games as well. I was able to use the analog stick, but I ended up just destroying my hands with the GameCube's extremely awful D-pad. I played through the majority of the Mega Man Classic series with this. What the heck was I doing as a kid? And then there's fighting games. These games are usually created with arcade controls in mind, and in my opinion, they do not translate well to the standard everyman controller. Arcade stick controllers usually have, exactly as the name suggests, sticks on them, but they're often still digital sticks, and usually they click into place into all the available zones, giving you some feedback. The everyday controller doesn't have this, so there's no clicky clicks, and I'm never quite sure where one input ends and another starts, which makes precise fighting games with special inputs quite difficult. See, I knew the GBA was gonna be better at fighting games than a PS4 controller! So the video game controller is probably the most important in getting a game's full experience. Luckily, there's a controller out there for everyone, from people who just can't deal with analog sticks, to people who just can't get enough of the bloody things, to controllers designed for the Martians that invaded in 1996. For who was this thing made?